Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be talking about some reasons why I don't recommend buying small form factor desktop computers. Here we have an Acer Aspire L5100 computer, and if you're guessing that this thing is based off of Mini ITX, you're wrong. It's not. Let me go ahead and unplug the connections on the back and go ahead and have a look at this thing. This machine is proprietary, and the reason why it's in for service is because it will not start. It does turn on, the power LED lights up, the hard drive spins up, the fans run, but you get nothing on the keyboard and nothing shows up on the monitor. So we definitely got some issues going on with this machine. Normally in a desktop computer, you could easily look at the power supply unit and see if there's any bad capacitors inside the power supply, because sometimes a faulty power supply can cause symptoms like this. But this machine is like a laptop. It gets its power from a 19.5 volt supply and down converts it to 12 volts, 5 volts, 3.3 volts, etc. This is the back of the machine. Here we have our exhaust fans, our sound ports, DVI, HDMI, 4 USB ports, Firewire, Ethernet, and our power in jack. Let's go and have a look inside this thing. Okay, here's what the inside of the computer looks like. It's funny enough, they actually crammed a full-size hard drive in this thing. And here is the cooling for the CPU, which, by the way, the CPU is an Athlon 64, probably a socket AM2 processor. Just have a look at how crammed full this thing is. If you can have a look way down in there, there's a chipset heatsink. There's not much room in this thing for air to flow. And that's a definite problem, if you ask me. And here's a look at the front of the machine with the front bezel popped loose. Not to mention there's a good bit of dust. There's a couple little vents in here for everything to breathe, but there's not much breathing room because it's so crammed full of stuff. Okay, here's the motherboard inside the computer. I got the hard drive and CD drive sitting over there. And just have a look how crammed this thing is. I mean, these heat sinks can barely get any air because they're crammed under the hard drive. It's not a very good design here. You have two exhaust fans. They pull air across the CPU heatsink and through here. So air comes in through here, which, by the way, if you notice, that's where most of the dust is over in this section. So most of the airflow came in through here, across the memory, and through the CPU heatsink, and out the back. But no air was over here to cool the South Bridge, North Bridge, or hard drive. So that's a potential flaw in this machine. And as you can tell, Acer's got their name on this motherboard, so it's pretty much proprietary in this setup. Acer does have their name on other non-proprietary motherboards in their machines too. I've actually reused an Acer board in a different machine in a repair before. But let's go and take this memory out, which, by the way, is SODIMM laptop memory. That's another thing about these mini machines is they tend to use some laptop components, such as memory, in some cases hard drives, in a lot of cases CD drives. In fact, in some small form factor desktops, I could actually take the CD drive out and then install it into a laptop. I've actually done that before. Anyways, let's go and have a look here. Here's another reason that led up to this machine's failure. You see that right there? That's why. First reason is the heat, like I was saying earlier. The heat is what caused this thing to fail. no airflow coming through here causes these chips to get very hot, and more likely this here is the one that failed. And basically the chip got very hot, and what happened was the lead-free solder developed micro cracks. And this machine apparently does have good video built in to the chipset, so that just adds for more heat. So the heat built up really high in this heatsink, so the heatsink couldn't dissipate the heat very well, so the chip got very hot, and the lead-free solder failed. Micro cracks formed, causing loss of connection with the motherboard, and that's what led to the failure. So, but you say it's RHS compliant. Well, it is. It's supposed to be greener for the environment, but how is it greener for the environment when the thing fails after 4 years and gets thrown in the trash? I mean, most people will not properly recycle their electronic devices. They'll just toss them in the trash can or send them out to the side of the road and hopefully somebody will get them. But I mean, used to be with computers when they actually had leaded solder, which is a better solder in my opinion, the components actually lasted. I mean, the person would use their computer for many, many years, and they would just get tired of the machine because, I mean, it just keep on lasting, but they want it's time for a new machine. They'd sell the computer to somebody else or donate to a local thrift store or something. That computer would get passed down to somebody else and it continue to get used, rather than get thrown in the trash at a premature age. So, I mean, that's why I don't agree with ROHS. I think they should have just kept that out and left the conventional lead solder in there. Sure, it might cause cancer once in a while, but hey, at least the computers and electronic devices that use lead solder will keep working. And to be honest with you all, my opinion when it comes to desktops, they're big for a reason. The reason is for good airflow within the system. I mean, most people when they pop up in their machines and are not familiar with computer repair or anything, they're like, wow, this thing, there's not much in this thing. It's like that for a good reason. Your CPU runs hot, chipset runs pretty hot, and let's see if you have a graphics card installed, that gets pretty hot. It's good to have a good wide open case and good fans in the system to dissipate that heat. And this machine here is a Micro ATX mini tower. Uses a Micro ATX motherboard, but the case is smaller than a mid tower, such as that over there. This is pretty much the most popular design when it comes to desktop computers. Most computers, especially most OEM computers, will have this form factor of case, or at least something similar. Now, don't get me wrong; these machines can last if they're built right. Had Acer decided to use a heat pipe running from these two chips to back here where the fans are at, this machine would probably still be working, more than likely. Speaking of heat pipe cooling, that's actually how laptops cool themselves. But the only difference with laptops is their CPUs run much cooler than desktop CPUs. That's why when it comes to computers that are very small, I recommend that they use heat pipe cooling for everything, and probably throw in a mobile processor, because they run much cooler. And the purpose of this video is not necessarily to put down on small form factor computers. It's just to for me to describe some definite flaws in some small form factor computers and why I don't recommend them. I actually do like small form factor machines, but this is as small as I like to go on them. This here is a Micro ATX machine, and it actually uses a Micro ATX case and power supply. So the width of the case is actually a bit smaller than a Micro ATX mini tower, and the length, or say for the height, if it's sitting vertical, is not quite as tall. But in this machine here, there's plenty of airflow, and I've actually got this one modified in terms of fan cooling. I've actually got a fan located next to the DVD drive. I got a slot fan at the bottom of the machine, and I got the rear case fan and power supply fan all going to keep this machine cool, so that way it lasts. Now, for the customer that owns this Acer machine here, I'm going to be backing up the contents off the hard drive, so that way she can have her files back, because those are very important to her. But I'm also going to suggest maybe taking some of the components such as the hard drive and the CPU out of this machine, and possibly building another desktop. So anyways, if you decide to buy a small form factor computer, be very careful, because some of these machines are not designed very well in terms of their cooling. Anyways, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask.